I stood up from my family's dinner table, my hands trembling, and told them a truth that shattered the perfect image they had of me. The room fell dead silent the moment I said, "Funny, I haven't lived there for 6 weeks. My name is Gemma. I'm 32 years old. My entire life, I tried to be the perfect daughter, the reliable one, the one who never caused trouble, who never, ever asked for anything. That is, until that Sunday dinner. My parents casually laughed and announced that my sister, Zoe, would be moving into my place for a while. They didn't ask, they just assumed. They were still making plans for her when I pushed my chair back and stood. "Funny," I said, my voice shockingly steady. "I haven't lived there for 6 weeks." The silence was immediate. "Absolute." My mom's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "Wait, then where have you been staying? But before I tell you how my family completely fell apart that night, let me rewind. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. From the time I could tie my own shoes, my parents expected me to handle things. My sister, Zoe, 3 years younger, treated like she was made of glass. If she cried, they rushed to her. If I cried, I was told to be strong. To set a good example, Gemma can handle it. That was my parents' favorite phrase. A school project, Gemma can handle it. College applications, Gemma can handle it. Finding an apartment, building a career with zero financial help. Gemma can handle it. And I did. I worked my way through college. I landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago. I climbed the ladder for 7 long years. I found a small bedroom in Lincoln Park that I could just barely afford. It was mine, earned with countless overtime hours and sacrificed weekends. Every time I paid that rent, I felt 2 things: pride, because I'd done it completely alone, and resentment, because my sister lived at home until she was 26. My parents covered all her bills while she found herself. They even helped with the down payment on her condo last year. "Your sister is more sensitive than you." My mom would say, "You've always been so independent, Gemma." Independent wasn't a choice. It was an expectation placed on me in childhood, a role I had to fill because no one ever offered me another option. Then, 6 weeks before that dinner, everything collapsed. My company lost a major client. Layoffs were announced. Despite my dedication, I was let go. Last in, first out, they said, which wasn't even true. The truth was, I didn't have the personal connections others had built while I was working late. I got 2 weeks of severance. It covered 1 rent payment, nothing more. I applied for jobs immediately, certain I'd find something fast. I was wrong. The market was flooded. Each day brought more rejection emails. Or worse, silence. My savings, never substantial to begin with, vanished. When the first of the month came and I couldn't pay rent, I had a choice: tell my family and ask for help, or handle it myself, like I always had. Pride won. I packed what I could fit into my Honda Civic, gave notice to my landlord, and I prepared to live in my car. It'll just be a week or two. I told myself, organizing my trunk, no one needs to know. I kept my gym membership for showers. I found safe parking spots to sleep. I maintained my appearance perfectly. No one could tell I was homeless. I used library computers for job applications. I took online interviews from coffee shops. And every single Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for dinner. Just like always, I arrived welled. Rest. I told completely fabricated stories about work and friends. I listened to them praise Zoe for her latest minor accomplishment. I smiled. I played my part. Those dinners were a lifeline and a source of pure resentment. They gave me a good meal and a few hours in a real home. But each time, I grew more angry, more hurt. They were completely oblivious to my struggle. Not once did they ask how I was really doing. Not once did they notice the dark circles under my eyes that my makeup couldn't hide. Not once did they question why I always arrived exactly on time and left right after dessert. 6 Sundays passed this way. 6 dinners where I smiled through gritted teeth. 6 evenings of my mother asking Zoe detailed questions about her life, while only asking me a quick "how's work?" before moving on. 6 times of my father patting Zoe on the shoulder proudly, while barely looking at me. The resentment built up inside me like pressure in a sealed container. Every dismissal, every moment of preferential treatment, every casual assumption that I was fine. It all added up. I started to wonder, would they even notice if I just stopped coming? Would they call? Or would they just shrug and say, "That's Gemma, always independent"? The worst part? Knowing that if I told them the truth, their response would be disappointment, not support. My mom would sigh dramatically. My dad would offer a reluctant loan with a lecture. Zoe would look at me with pity. So I kept up the charade, sleeping in parking lots, washing my hair in gym sinks, applying for jobs from coffee shops, pretending everything was fine every Sunday. I was handling it, just like I was always expected to. But inside, something was breaking. The Gemma who always rose to meet expectations was crumbling. I wasn't handling it. I was barely surviving, and not one person in my family had a clue. That Sunday started like all the others. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. when the sun heated my car. I'd parked behind a 24-hour supermarket, a safe spot. I folded my blanket, tucked it away, gathered my toiletries and a fresh outfit. At 6 a.m., when the gym opened, I was first in line. I showered, brushed my teeth, applied my makeup carefully. By 9 a.m., I was in a coffee shop, sending out another batch of job applications. At 3 p.m., I started getting ready for dinner. I changed into a nicer outfit in a public restroom. A dark blue dress my mother always liked. I stopped and bought a small bunch of daisies, not because I wanted to, but because showing up empty-handed felt wrong. I drove to the suburbs, timed my arrival for exactly 5 p.m. My mother answered the door. "Oh, you're here," she said, like my punctuality was a surprise. "Zoe's running 15 minutes late." Of course she was, and of course it was fine. If I were 15 minutes late, there would have been comments all through dinner about consideration. "I made lasagna," Mom said, Zoe's favorite. It had been her favorite for 30 years. Just once, I wished she'd made my favorite, but she probably didn't even know what it was. For the record, it's chicken pot pie. With extra time, my father was watching football. He grunted a greeting without looking away from the screen. I put the daisies on the coffee table. "Those for your mother?" he asked. "Yes," I said. They'd been for both of them. "Nice," he said. His attention was already back on the game. I went to the kitchen to help my mom. She handed me plates, talking the whole time about Zoe's latest achievement, a small promotion at the boutique where she worked. "Assistant manager now," Mom said proudly, "and they're giving her business cards, real ones with her name on them." I nodded and smiled. I didn't mention that I'd had business cards for years, that assistant manager wasn't comparable to my former job as a marketing strategist. But I reminded myself that wasn't fair. It wasn't Zoe's fault our parents had different standards for us. The doorbell rang at 5:20. My mother rushed to answer it, abandoning the salad. I heard Zoe's loud, animated voice. Then my father's enthusiastic greeting. They all came into the kitchen laughing. "Gemma," Zoe said, giving me a quick hug. "You look nice. That dress brings out your eyes." I thanked her, noting she was in jeans and a casual top. I was always overdressed, another sign of trying too hard that no one saw. We sat down to eat. The conversation immediately centered on Zoe, her promotion, her bad date, her thoughts on a photography class, her complaints about a difficult customer. I ate quietly, offering responses when directly addressed, which wasn't often. The lasagna was good, but it sat like a rock in my stomach, mixing with my constant anxiety. Then, during a lull, my mother said, "So, Zoe has some news." Zoe looked down at her plate. "It's not a big deal, Mom." "Of course it is, honey. Family helps family." My mom patted Zoe's hand. Zoe and Mark broke up. This was the first I'd heard of trouble. "I'm sorry," I said automatically. "It's for the best." Zoe shrugged. "But he's keeping the apartment, so I need a new place." A tingle of warning went up my neck, which brings us to the favor. My mother continued. It'll just be for a little while, until Zoe finds her own place. My father joined in. We were thinking, since you have that spare bedroom in your apartment. They hadn't even asked it as a question. There was no spare bedroom, I had a one. Bedroom Zoe had visited once. Had she forgotten? Had they all forgotten? We know it's an imposition. Mom said, but family helps family, just a month or two. A month or two, in an apartment I no longer had. With what money, on what bed? My father chuckled. Plus, Zoe can help with the rent. That Lincoln Park place of yours isn't cheap. They kept talking, as if my life was exactly the same as it was 6 weeks ago. As if they knew anything about my reality, the pressure that had been building for weeks. Snapped. 6 weeks of sleeping in my car. 6 weeks of showering at a gym. 6 weeks of pretending. 6 weeks of them not noticing. They were still laughing, making plans for Zoe to move in with me that weekend when I stood up. Funny, I said, my voice dangerously steady. I haven't lived there for 6 weeks. The laughter died. Just stopped. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me, confused. What do you mean? My father asked, his brow furrowed. I lost my job 6 weeks ago. I couldn't afford rent. I had to give up my apartment. Each sentence felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. My mother's voice trembled. Where exactly have you been staying? The silence felt eternal. I looked at each of them. My father's confusion. My mother's dawning horror. Zoe's uncomfortable shift. My car, I finally said. I've been living in my car for the past 6 weeks. My mother gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. That's ridiculous. My father said, his voice gruff. Why would you do that when you could have just come home? That question ignited something in me. Could I have? I asked. Really? Because not once in the past 10 years have you suggested this was still my home. Not once have you offered me the kind of support you've given Zoe at every single turn. That's not fair. My mother interjected. We've always supported both of you equally. I laughed, a harsh, surprising sound. Equally, Mom. You paid Zoe's rent until she was 26. You helped with the down payment on her condo. You've bailed her out of credit card debt twice, that I know of. Meanwhile, I worked through college. I have student loans I'm still paying off. I have received exactly 0 financial help since I turned 18. We helped you with college, my father protested. You paid for 1 semester of books. I paid for everything else myself. My mother was crying now. Why didn't you tell us you were in trouble? We would have helped. Would you? I shot back. Or would you have lectured me about responsibility? Would you have sighed and wondered how your responsible daughter could be such a disappointment? Zoe spoke up. Gemma, that's not fair. Mom and Dad love you. This isn't about love, Zoe. It's about expectations. It's about double standards. It's about how they call you twice a day but didn't notice I've been homeless for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Zoe. Where did you think I was showering? Where did you think I was sleeping? How do you think it feels to sit here and listen to everyone talk about your promotion at a boutique when I lost a career I spent 7 years building? We didn't know. My father said, his voice softer. That's exactly the problem. My voice broke. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't know because you've never been interested in my life beyond the surface. You didn't know because it's always been easier to assume I'm fine while you focus all your attention on Zoe. That's not true, my mother sobbed. We've always been so proud of you. Proud of what? I demanded. Can you name one accomplishment of mine from the last year? Can you tell me what my last big project was? Can you tell me who my friends are? What I do for fun? Anything real about my life? The silence that followed was my answer. Do you remember when I made honor roll every semester in high school? I continued, unable to stop the flood. Zoe brought home 1, and you took her out for ice cream. I brought home straight A's, and you said, "That's what we expect from you, Gemma." My father shifted. We never meant to make you feel less important, but you did. The words were quiet, final. Every time you dropped everything for Zoe's school events, but couldn't make mine. Every time you spent hours helping her with homework, but told me I was smart enough to figure it out. Every time you praised her tiny achievements and took mine for granted. The memories were sharp. Painful. Remember my college graduation. You showed up an hour late because Zoe had a minor fender bender. She wasn't hurt. The car had a small dent, but that was more important than being on time to see me graduate. That's not what happened. My mother protested weakly. It is exactly what happened, just like when I got my promotion 2 years ago and you changed the subject to Zoe's new haircut, or when I ran that marathon last year and you forgot it was even happening. My father's face was red. You're exaggerating. We've always treated you both the same, Dad, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. I have been sleeping in my car for 6 weeks. I came here every Sunday, and not one of you noticed anything was wrong. How is that the same? You should have told us. He exploded, pounding his fist on the table. The dishes rattled. How are we supposed to know if you didn't say anything? You've always been independent. We respected that about you. It wasn't respect, I said, my voice quiet but clear. It was convenience. It was easier to assume I was fine than to actually pay attention. It was easier to focus on Zoe because she demanded it, while I did what I was taught from childhood, handle it myself and never, ever complain. My mother was sobbing openly. I can't believe you've been living in your car, my daughter, homeless, what will people think? And there it was, not concern for me, concern for appearances, that's all you care about, isn't it? I said, the fight suddenly gone from me. What people will think, not that I've been struggling, not that I've been alone, just how it makes you look. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I stood up and grabbed my purse. I need some air. Don't you walk out of this house, young lady, my father commanded. I looked right at him. I'm 32 years old, Dad. I'm not a young lady you can order around, and this stopped feeling like a home to me a long time ago. I walked out. I ignored their calls to come back. In the driveway, I got into my car, my home, and finally, I let myself cry. Deep gut, wrenching sobs I'd been holding back for weeks. I cried for the little girl who tried so hard to be perfect. I cried for the woman who lost everything. I cried for the family that had brought us to this point. Through the window, I could see them still at the table, gesturing, talking. My mother was still crying. My father looked angry. Zoe had her head down. They were probably talking about my ingratitude, how I ruined dinner, or maybe, just maybe, they were finally seeing the truth. The week that followed was one of the hardest of my life. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts, calls. I couldn't answer. What more was there to say? I'd told them the truth, and their reactions just confirmed everything I'd always felt. They didn't know me at all. My mother's texts were guilt trips and demands. I cried all night. Call me right now. My father left gruff voicemails. Stop this nonsense and come home. Zoe's messages were gentler. Are you okay? Where are you staying? But I couldn't answer her either. Meanwhile, my situation got worse. The confrontation drained me. I was late to virtual interviews. My appearance started to slip. The depression took hold. My funds were nearly gone. Less than $100 left. I started skipping meals. 10 days after the dinner, a severe thunderstorm hit Chicago. I was parked in what I thought was a safe spot. But at 2 a.m., I woke up to water seeping into my car. The street had flooded. Water was coming through the door seals. In a panic, I started the engine, tried to move to higher ground. It was too late. Water reached the engine. The car sputtered and died. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, my important documents. I waded through knee-deep water to the sidewalk. I stood there in the pouring rain, watching water fill my car, my home, my clothes, my toiletries, my family photos. All ruined. I had nowhere to go. No one to call. So I walked, in the rain, in the middle of the night. I walked until I found an all-night laundromat. I sat in a plastic chair, soaking wet, clutching my laptop bag until morning. When the rain stopped, I went back to my car. It was a total loss. Everything inside was soaked. The insurance process would take weeks. I spent that day moving between coffee shops and libraries. No plan, no shelter. By evening, exhausted, I sat on a bench in a small park. No plan, nothing. That's where Officer Bryant found me. Ma'am, the park closes at 9. You need to move along, she said, Then she saw my face. Are you all right? Do you need medical assistance? I shook my head. I'm fine. Just nowhere to go. She sat beside me, keeping a respectful distance. How long have you been homeless? The word hit me like a physical blow. Homeless. I'd never said it about myself. But now, with no car, it was undeniable. My car flooded last night. I said, my voice hollow, I've been living in it for about 7 weeks. I have nothing. She nodded. No judgment. There's a women's shelter about 20 minutes from here. They might have a bed. Would you like me to call? Pride told me to say no, to handle it, but I was so tired, so incredibly tired of being alone. Yes, I whispered, please. She made the call. They had space. She gave me a ride. The shelter was called New Beginnings. A woman named Lucia checked me in. She asked about my situation with a gentle directness that broke me. When she asked if I had family to contact, I completely broke down, sobbing as I tried to explain. Family isn't always what we need in a crisis, Lucia said, handing me a tissue. Sometimes we need strangers who can see us clearly. She showed me to a small bed in a room with 3 other women. It wasn't private. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, dry, safe that night. Lying in that narrow bed, I hit rock bottom, not because of where I was, but because I finally acknowledged how far I'd fallen, from a successful professional to a woman in a shelter. All because I was too proud to ask for help, too conditioned to believe I had to handle everything alone. In the dark, listening to strangers breathe, I faced the truth. The identity I'd built, the capable, independent Gemma, was a facade. Underneath was a wounded child, still desperate for her parents' attention. The next morning, I met with a social worker, Diane. She helped me apply for emergency assistance, gave me job placement info. You're not the typical client we see, she said carefully. You have education, experience. This is a temporary setback, not a life sentence. Her words made me think of the other women there. Maria, who fled domestic violence. Tanya, whose mental illness cost her everything. Elinor, an elderly woman priced out of her apartment. Their stories humbled me. Yes, I had hardship, but I also had advantages they never did. For the first time, I truly understood privilege. My first night in a real bed was relief and profound sadness. Relief at the comfort, sadness at how far I'd fallen. But as I drifted off, one thought comforted me. I wasn't pretending anymore. The truth was out. And maybe that was the first step towards something better. 2 weeks into my stay at the shelter, Lucia approached me. Gemma, you have a visitor. I was startled. I hadn't told anyone where I was. When I walked to the reception area, it was Zoe. She looked uncertain, out of place in her designer clothes. How did you find me? I asked. I've been looking everywhere. She said. I called hospitals, checked with the police. An officer named Bryant finally said you might be here. She hesitated. Can we talk, get coffee? Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself, but she looked vulnerable, so I nodded. We went to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. An awkward silence hung between us. Mom and Dad don't know I'm here, she finally said. They think I'm at work. Why the secrecy? Because I wanted to talk to you first, without their drama. They've been a mess since that dinner. Mom cries constantly. Dad's angry, but he's really scared. They're looking for you in all the wrong places. Hotels, friends' houses. It never occurred to them you'd be in a shelter. It never occurred to me either. I admitted. Gemma. Zoe's eyes filled with tears. I am so sorry. I had no idea things were so unbalanced. I never saw it. Why would you? I said, not unkindly. You were the beneficiary. That's not fair. I didn't ask to be treated differently. Didn't you all those times you called for money, for help, for support? You let them bail you out of situations I had to handle alone. Zoe looked down. I never thought about it that way. I just thought, that's what parents are for, to help when you need it. For you, maybe, not for me. I see that now, she said softly, and I feel terrible, not just for what happened to you, but because I've been part of the problem. I took their help for granted while you struggled alone. Her sincerity surprised me. This wasn't the self-centered Zoe I knew. I've been looking for you every day, she continued, driving around. I was so worried. Why? You've never worried about me before. She winced. I deserve that, but it's not entirely true. I've always admired you, Gemma. You seemed so put together, so capable. I never thought you needed anything from anyone. I never thought you needed me. The irony hit me. My competence had created distance with my sister, too. What happened with your car? Zoe asked. Your text said something about a flood. I told her, the storm, the flooded street, losing everything. As I talked, I realized it was the first time in years I'd shared a real problem with her without putting on a brave face. That's awful, she said when I finished. What are you going to do now? Keep looking for jobs. Stay at the shelter until I can afford a place. Start over. Zoe took a deep breath. I have a suggestion. Promise you won't immediately say no. She paused. Come stay with me. I stared at her. What, you don't have a place? You broke up with Mark? I do have a place, she said, looking embarrassed. I never moved in with Mark. That was something Mom and Dad assumed, and I never corrected them. I've had my own studio in Wicker Park for 3 months. The couch pulls out. You could stay until you're back on your feet. You lied about living with Mark. Why? Because I was embarrassed. We dated for 8 months, but he didn't want to commit. When we broke up, it was easier to let them think we'd live together than admit the truth. She gave a small laugh. Apparently, dishonesty runs in the family. I wasn't dishonest. I protested. I just didn't tell them everything. Neither did I. That's my point. We've both been playing roles. You're the capable one who never needs help. I'm the fragile one who always needs rescuing. Neither of us is the whole truth. I considered her offer. It meant being vulnerable with someone I'd always competed with. I don't know, Zoe. We've never been close. We might kill each other in a small space. Probably. She agreed with a candor that surprised me. But it's better than a shelter, and maybe it's time we got to know each other as adults, not just as the roles we were assigned. Her words echoed my own thoughts. Mom and Dad don't know about your apartment, I asked. No, and they don't need to know you're staying with me either, not until you're ready. The offer of space was tempting, but my old enemy, pride, surfaced. I don't want charity, Zoe, not even from you. It's not charity, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. It's family, real family. Let me help you, not because you need it, but because I want to. Because that's what sisters should do. I looked at her, really looked. Behind the perfect makeup was a woman trying to build a bridge across years of distance. Okay, I said finally, but I'll contribute as soon as I can, and this is temporary. Of course, she agreed quickly, totally temporary. That afternoon, I packed my few things from the shelter, thanked Lucia and Diane, and followed Zoe to her apartment. It was a small converted loft. The pull-out couch looked comfortable. Make yourself at home, Zoe said, showing me around. It was awkward, this new dynamic, but refreshing, too. Without our parents as an audience, we were finding our way to a new sisterhood. That evening over takeout, Zoe surprised me. I have a friend who works at Digital Edge Marketing, she said casually. They're looking for someone with campaign strategy experience. I mentioned you. She said to send your resume directly to her. I nearly choked. You did what? Last week, when I was looking for you, I figured you'd need a job. Sarah's always complaining about how hard it is to find good people. I sent her your LinkedIn profile. Hope that's okay. It was more than okay. Digital Edge was a respected firm, exactly the kind of place I wanted. Zoe, thank you. That's incredibly thoughtful. She smiled, a real, genuine smile. That's what sisters do, right? Look out for each other. As we talked, I saw a Zoe I hadn't known. Funny, insightful. She spoke about her own struggles with our parents' expectations. How the fragile a role had become a cage. They still treat me like I'm 16, she complained. Dad tried to talk me out of renewing my lease. He thinks living alone is too much responsibility for me. I'm 29. At least they care enough to worry. I countered, it's not worry, Gemma. It's control. They don't think I can make good decisions, so they try to make them for me. It's suffocating. I saw then that the preferential treatment I resented came with its own price. She'd been infantilized, her independence stunted. While I was forced to be too independent too soon, she was never allowed to be independent at all. We were both victims of the same imbalance, just in different ways. That realization didn't erase years of hurt, but it gave me new empathy for her. That night, on her pull-out couch, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: hope. Not just for a job or a home, but for a real relationship with my sister. The interview at Digital Edge went perfectly. Sarah was impressed. 2 days later, I had a job offer. The salary was slightly less, but the benefits were better, including mental health coverage. Living with Zoe was challenging. Her sleep schedule, her housekeeping, her borrowing my clothes. Some things never changed, but there were good moments too: late night talks, movie marathons, cooking lessons where I taught her skills our mother never had. We found a routine. I was out early, she worked later. Evenings were our time. With my first paycheck, I insisted on paying rent. With my second, I started a savings account. By the third month, I had enough to look for my own place, though I wasn't rushing. We'd found a comfortable rhythm. Our parents kept calling. I responded minimally. Zoe maintained the charade that she didn't know where I was, but it weighed on her. I hate lying to them, she confessed. Mom called today crying, afraid you're on the streets. It feels wrong not to tell her you're okay. I am okay now, I acknowledged, but I wasn't for a long time, and they never noticed. I'm not ready to pretend everything's fine just to make them feel better. At Zoe's suggestion, I started therapy. Dr. Reynolds helped me process not just the homelessness, but the deeper childhood wounds. She didn't push me to reconcile, but made me consider what kind of relationship I wanted with my parents. Complete estrangement is an option, she said, but it comes with a cost. The question is whether that cost is worth the protection it provides. I thought about that for a long time. What did I want? Not the support they gave Zoe. That ship had sailed. But maybe something more honest. 2 months after moving in with Zoe, nearly 5 months after that dinner, I decided it was time. I met my parents at a neutral restaurant. Public enough to prevent drama, they looked older. My mother had lost weight. My father's shoulders were stooped. They rushed over. My mother reached to hug me, then stopped, uncertain. "Gemma," she said, her voice breaking. "You look well." "I am well," I said. "Thank you for coming." "Of course we came." My father said gruffly, "We've been worried sick." "Where have you been staying?" Zoe swears she doesn't know, but I'm not here to be interrogated. I interrupted calmly. "I'm here to talk about our relationship and what happens next." My mother wiped a tear. "We've been so worried all these months." "I understand you've been worried, but I need you to understand why I needed space. This isn't just about the past few months. It's about a lifetime of imbalance." My father started to speak, but my mother touched his arm, silencing him. "I've prepared some things I need to say." I continued, "I'd appreciate it if you would just listen." They nodded. I told them everything. The 2 sets of expectations. The financial support for Zoe, but not for me. The emotional attention she received while I was left alone. How both of us were harmed. Zoe never learning independence, me never learning to ask for help. I described the shame I felt when I lost my job, why I couldn't tell them. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty." I said, "I'm telling you because if we have any future, it has to be based on truth, not the comfortable fictions we've lived with." When I finished, my mother was crying. My father's eyes were bright. A long silence. Finally, my father spoke, his voice rough. "I had no idea. None. I thought we were doing right by both of you, giving Zoe the support she seemed to need, respecting your independence because that's what you seem to want." "I didn't want independence, Dad," I said quietly. "I needed it because no one gave me another option." "Oh, Gemma." My mother reached for my hand. This time I let her. "I've been thinking about what you said that night, going over it in my mind. The honor roll, your graduation, all of it. You're right. We did take you for granted. We did expect more from you. I don't know why we fell into that pattern, but we did. and I am so, so sorry." Her apology felt genuine, but I'd heard apologies before. "I appreciate that, Mom, but I need to know if anything will actually change. I can't go back to the way things were. What do you want from us?" My father asked, direct as ever. "Honesty, recognition of who I really am, respect for my boundaries, and a willingness to examine your own behavior instead of getting defensive." He nodded slowly. "Reasonable requests." "They're not requests, Dad. They're requirements for me to have a relationship with you." My directness startled him, then he nodded again. "Fair enough." My mother dabbed her eyes. "Where are you living? Are you safe? Do you have a job?" The predictable questions, but for the first time I sensed real concern beneath them. "I'm safe. I have a good job. That's all I'm comfortable sharing right now." "But when will we see you?" she pressed. "When can we talk more?" "I don't know yet. This is a first step. I need time, and I need to see evidence that you're willing to change how you relate to me." My father, unusually quiet, spoke with unexpected vulnerability. "I thought I was being a good father by treating you like an adult, by not hovering. I see now I was just avoiding the harder parts of parenting." His voice cracked. "I failed you, Gemma, not just these past months, but for years. I don't know if you can forgive that, but I hope someday you'll give me the chance to be the father you deserved." His admission caught me off guard. Tears stung my eyes. "I'd like that, Dad, but it will take time." My mother held my hand. "Whatever you need, however long it takes, we'll wait, we'll do better, just please, don't disappear again." I made no promises, but I agreed to text them once a week to confirm I was okay. It wasn't a tearful reconciliation. It was honest, and for the first time, honesty felt more important than harmony. Walking away, I felt different. Not healed, but on my way to becoming something new, something authentic. I had faced them without submitting or attacking. I had spoken my truth, set my boundaries. It was terrifying and liberating. 6 months after that dinner, I moved into my own apartment, smaller, in a less prestigious neighborhood, but it was mine. Zoe helped me move. Our time as roommates had transformed us from competitors to genuine friends. "I'm gonna miss you," she admitted, collapsing on my new couch. "Who's gonna force me to clean the bathroom now?" I laughed. "You're an adult. Figure it out." "See, that's what I'll miss. Your tough love." But we both knew our relationship wouldn't end. We had sister nights. We talked about everything. My relationship with my parents evolved slowly. Weekly texts became phone calls. My mother tried to see me as I was. My father asked about my work and actually listened. 2 months ago, I invited them to my new apartment for dinner. The first time I'd seen them since the restaurant. It was awkward, tense, but there were glimpses of something new. My father complimented my cooking without comparing it. My mother asked about my job without changing the subject. That first dinner in my new apartment was fragile, like we were all holding glass figurines, terrified of dropping them, but we got through it. My father didn't mention my job title once. My mother didn't bring up Zoe for a full 20 minutes. It was progress, small but real. After they left, the silence in my apartment felt different. It wasn't the lonely silence of my car or the crowded silence of the shelter. It was a peaceful quiet. It was mine. The next Sunday, my phone buzzed. It was the family group chat. "Mom, dinner at our place this week. I'm making chicken pot pie, with extra thyme." I stared at the message. She remembered. My eyes welled up, and I had to put the phone down for a minute. It was such a small thing, but it felt huge. It felt like she was finally seeing me. I went. The pot pie was a little burnt on one side, but it was the best meal I'd had at their table in years. The conversations were still stilted. We were all learning a new language, but the old script, the one where I was the audience for Zoe's life, was gone. A few weeks later, my dad showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning, unannounced. He stood on my doorstep, holding a toolbox and looking awkward. "The faucet in your kitchen," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Last time I was here, I noticed it had a slow drip, figured I could fix it." My father, Mr. Gemma can handle it, was offering to fix my faucet. I let him in. He worked in silence for a while, the familiar sounds of clinking metal filling my small kitchen. "You know," he said, his head under the sink, his voice muffled. I've been talking to a guy at work. His daughter is in marketing too. He mentioned his firm is looking for a senior project manager. I told him about you if you're interested. This wasn't the reluctant, lecture-filled help of the past. This was just a father helping his daughter. Thanks, Dad. I said, my throat tight. I'll look into it. He finished the job, packed his tools, and at the door he paused. You've done a good job with this place, Gemma. It feels like you. It was the first time he'd ever complimented a space that was mine. Meanwhile, my relationship with Zoe deepened in a way I never thought possible. We weren't just sisters bound by blood and history. We were becoming friends by choice. She came over one Tuesday night looking exhausted. Her boutique was struggling, and for the first time, she was facing real professional pressure without our parents as a safety net. I don't know what to do, she admitted, slumping on my couch. The owner is talking about cutting hours, maybe even closing. The old me would have thought, now you know how it feels. The new me just listened. Tell me about the numbers. I said. We spent the night with her spreadsheets and my laptop. I helped her analyze her store's traffic, identify their best selling products, and draft a proposal to the owner for a new social media strategy instead of cutting staff. She looked at me when we finished, her eyes wide. How did you know how to do all that? It's what I do, Zoe, I said softly. It's what I've always done. It was her turn to see me, not as her rival, but as an expert, as someone who could help her. She presented the plan. The owner loved it. The boutique stayed open, and Zoe was given more responsibility. Her gratitude wasn't laced with pity or guilt. It was pure, and it was for me. About a year after my world fell apart, I was promoted to senior marketing manager at Digital Edge. It was the kind of role I'd been working toward my entire career. I decided to host a small dinner to celebrate my parents, Zoe, a few close friends from my new life. My mother brought a cake. My father shook my hand, his own grip firm and proud. Well done, kid, he said, and it felt earned. But the most powerful moment came from Zoe. She stood up, clinking her glass. I want to make a toast, she said. To my sister, Gemma, you've always been the strongest person I know. But this past year, you taught me that real strength isn't about handling everything alone. It's about having the courage to fall apart, to ask for help, and to rebuild something even better. I'm so proud to be your sister. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, least of all mine. The healing wasn't a straight line. There were still moments. A forgotten birthday card that arrived a week late. A conversation that slipped back into old patterns. But now we had the tools to call it out, to say, hey, that felt like the old dynamic and course. Correct? My therapy sessions became less about crisis management and more about building a future, Dr. Reynolds helped me understand that I wasn't just building a career or a home. I was building a new identity, one that could hold both strength and vulnerability. I kept volunteering at New Beginnings. I started leading a weekly workshop on resume writing and personal branding for the women there, helping them see the value in their own stories, just as I had to learn to see the value in mine. One afternoon, a new woman came in. She was dressed, clutching a briefcase, her eyes wide with shock and shame. She looked like I had. Lucia gestured to me. Gemma, can you show Sarah the ropes? I sat with her, brought her a cup of tea, and listened. She was an accountant. Her firm had downsized. She'd burned through her savings, too proud to tell her family. I just never thought I'd be here. She whispered, her voice breaking. I know. I said, my own voice soft with understanding. But this isn't the end of your story. It's just a really difficult chapter. Telling her my own story, not for pity, but as a testament to survival, felt like closing a circle. My rock bottom was now a foundation I could offer to others. Today, my life looks nothing like I thought it would. It's better, it's real. I have an apartment that is truly a home, filled with things I love, not just things I could afford. I have a job where I am valued for my ideas, not just my endurance. I have a sister who is my best friend. We talk every day, not out of obligation, but because we genuinely want to know about each other's lives. And I have parents. We're not a perfect family. We never will be. But we're an honest one. We show up for each other. We try. Sometimes on a quiet Sunday evening, I'll sit in my living room and just breathe it all in, the safety, the peace, the sheer hard, won normality of it. I don't regret the collapse, the perfect daughter, the reliable one, the woman who could handle anything. She had to shatter so I could become this, so I could become me. My name is Gemma. I am 33 years old. I am not defined by what I can handle alone. I am defined by my capacity to feel, to heal, and to connect. And that, I have finally learned, is the greatest strength of all. If you're on your own journey of rebuilding, whether it's with family, a career, or your own sense of self, I hope my story gives you a little hope. The breaking is often the beginning of becoming something truer, something more beautiful than you could have imagined. Thank you for being part of my healing. Your stories in the comments have been a light for me too. If you haven't already, subscribe for more conversations about finding our way back to ourselves. Remember, your worth is not your productivity. Your vulnerability is not a weakness, and it is never ever too late to start again. That promotion at Digital Edge, it came with a new kind of confidence. It wasn't the brittle, I have to prove myself kind I'd lived on for years. This was quieter, deeper. It came from knowing I had survived the absolute worst, and not only was I still standing, but I was starting to truly thrive. One Tuesday, my new boss, Sarah, the one Zoe had connected me with, called me into her office. Gemma, she said, leaning forward, we're pitching the Aura skincare account next month. It's huge. I want you to lead the creative development. This was the kind of opportunity I would have killed for at my old job. The kind I never got. My heart hammered against my ribs, but for the first time it was from excitement, not fear. I'd love to, I said, and I meant it. The old me would have immediately buried myself in work, surviving on coffee and anxiety, determined to prove I was worthy of the chance. The new me, I assembled a team, I delegated. When I hit a creative wall at 6 p.m., I packed up my laptop and went to a yoga class I'd booked with Zoe. The night before the pitch, I slept. Actually slept. In the client boardroom, surrounded by sleek executives, I felt a strange calm. I presented our campaign, Authentically You, which was all about embracing your real skin, your real story. I spoke about imperfection not as a flaw, but as a source of strength. I wasn't just selling them a marketing plan. I was talking about everything I'd learned over the past year. When I finished, the head of marketing, a severe-looking woman in her 50s, was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. That, she said, is the first campaign in a decade that hasn't made me feel inadequate. It makes me feel seen. Where did that concept come from? I met her gaze, from a place of having to learn it the hard way. We won the account. Sarah took me out for a celebratory drink. That was masterful, Gemma, the way you connected with them. That's not something you can teach. She paused, swirling the wine in her glass. I'm putting you forward to lead the new empowerment and ethics division we're building. It's yours if you want it. It was more than a promotion. It was a mandate to build the kind of work culture I wished I'd had. One that valued people over profit, well-being over burnout. Meanwhile, my family was finding its new normal. Our Sunday dinners became a real ritual, not an obligation. The conversation flowed easier. One week, my dad started telling a story about me as a kid. How, at 8 years old, I'd tried to build a treehouse entirely by myself, stubbornly refusing help until I'd nailed my own thumb to a plank. We all laughed, a real belly-deep laugh, and in that moment, I realized the memory didn't hurt anymore. It was just a story. The resentment had loosened its grip. My mom started asking for my opinion on things, not just where to buy a good couch, but real things. She called me one afternoon, her voice hesitant. Gemma, I'm thinking of going back to work. Part-time, the library is hiring. Your father thinks it's a silly idea, but what do you think? I was stunned. My mother, who had built her entire identity around being a homemaker, was asking me for career advice. Mom, I think that's amazing, I said, and I walked her through how to tweak her resume, what to wear to the interview. She got the job. She calls me every Thursday after her shift, buzzing with stories about the patrons and the new books, sounding more alive than I'd heard her in years. Zoe's boutique, with the strategies we'd implemented, became a local sensation. She was featured in a neighborhood blog, and the picture they used was one I had taken of her. She framed it and put it behind the counter. "Look," she said when I visited, pointing at the frame. "My sister, the famous photographer." "I'm a marketer, you dork," I laughed. "Same thing. You see the best in people, and you know how to show it to them." The biggest test came about a year and a half after my comeback began. I was having dinner at my parents' house when Zoe arrived, her face pale. "The boutique, the building sold, the new owners are tripling the rent, we have to close." The air went out of the room. This was her passion, her baby, the thing she had built for real this time. My mother immediately went into fix-it mode. "Oh, honey, don't worry, we'll help you find something else. Your father and I can." "No, Mom." Zoe's voice was quiet but firm. We all looked at her. "Thank you," she said. "But no, this is my problem to solve." She looked at me, a silent question in her eyes. "Jem, can we talk later, strategize?" My parents were speechless. The dynamic had officially, irrevocably shifted. Zoe wasn't asking for a rescue. She was asking for a consultant. We spent the next week in a whirlwind. We analyzed commercial real estate data, crunched numbers, and explored pop-up shop possibilities. I saw a fierceness in my sister I'd never known was there. She wasn't crumbling, she was problem-solving. In the end, she found a smaller, better location in a more artistic district. She negotiated the lease herself. She used her severance from the old store and a small business loan she qualified for on her own merit to fund the move. The day she signed the papers, she texted our family group chat a picture of the keys. "Zoe, new doors, same badass owner. Grand reopening next month. Be there." My dad replied first. "Dad, so proud of you, kiddo. You handled that." And he was right. She had. Last month, I celebrated my 34th birthday. I woke up to a text from my dad. Just a simple happy birthday, Gemma. Love you. And a bouquet of daisies delivered to my door from my mom. The note read, "For the daughter who teaches us something new every day." Zoe took me out for dinner that night. Over dessert, she slid a small, clumsily wrapped box across the table. Inside was a keychain. It was a tiny, silver replica of a Honda Civic. I looked at her, my throat tight. "So you never forget," she said, her own eyes glistening, "how far you've driven yourself." I clutched it in my hand, the metal warm from my touch. It wasn't a symbol of my failure. It was a badge of honor. "I won't," I whispered, "and I know I never will. My story isn't about a dramatic revenge or a perfect fairy tale ending. It's about the quiet, daily work of rebuilding. It's about learning that the deepest bonds aren't forged in perfection, but in the repaired cracks. It's about finding your voice and discovering, to your astonishment, that the people who matter most are finally ready to listen. The perfect daughter is gone, and I am so glad she is. This is me, just Gemma. And that is more than enough. If you're still putting yourself back together, be gentle with yourself. Every piece you pick up is a victory. Share a small victory you've had lately in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're just starting to crack, know that the light on the other side is so much brighter than you can imagine. Subscribe if you want to walk this road together. Thanks for listening. So, this is where my story ends. Or really, where this particular chapter closes. If you'd told me 2 years ago, as I sat trembling in my car after that devastating dinner, that I'd be where I am today, I never would have believed you. I was convinced my life and my family were broken beyond repair. But here's the secret I learned in the pieces. Sometimes things need to break. The foundation I was standing on, the one built on being the capable one, on silence, on meeting expectations, was rotten. It had to collapse so I could build something new, something real, on solid ground. I'm not the same person I was. The frantic need to prove my worth with every paycheck, every promotion, every perfectly curated detail of my life. It's gone. It was exhausting. Now my worth is just me. It's in the quiet confidence I feel leading my team. It's in the easy laughter I share with my sister. It's in the peaceful silence of my own apartment. My family isn't fixed in the sense of being perfect. We still step on each other's toes sometimes. My mom still has to bite her tongue from offering unsolicited advice. My dad's praise can still feel a little gruff. But the difference is, we talk about it now. We have a new language, one built on honesty, not assumption. Zoe and I, we're sisters, truly. We don't just share DNA, we share our lives. We call each other with stupid problems and big dreams. We celebrate each other's wins without a hint of competition, because her success doesn't diminish mine, and my strength doesn't threaten hers. We finally see each other, and my parents, they're learning to love the woman I am, not the daughter they thought I was. They're trying, and that effort, that conscious, daily choice to try, means more than any perfect childhood ever could. I still have the keychain Zoe gave me. It jingles in my pocket every day. It's not a reminder of the darkness, but a tribute to my own resilience. It reminds me that I am the one who drove myself out of that storm. My story is proof that you can lose everything, your job, your home, the identity you've clung to, and not only survive, but emerge more yourself than you've ever been. The most powerful rebellion isn't a loud explosion. It's the quiet, steadfast decision to stop pretending. So, if you take anything from my journey, let it be this: your value is not your productivity. Your strength is not your silence, and your family, whether the one you were born into or the one you create, is worth fighting for, but only if that fight is to build a relationship where you can be your true, messy, imperfect self. It is never ever too late to start again, to say the thing that needs to be said, to ask for the help you deserve, to become the person you were always meant to be, once you shed the weight of who you were told to be. My name is Gemma. I am enough. Thank you for walking this path with me. Your stories in the comments have been a part of my healing, and I hope mine has been a part of yours. If you're still finding your way, know that you are not alone. Keep going. The other side is waiting for you.